Welcome to this, the fifth video in the series of the 7 habits of highly successful internet marketers and the fourth habit. Now, this habit in particular is a very important one to internet marketing because it provides the basis on which your business is going to work, the actual model that you're going to follow. And of course, it is systems. Let's look at the very first element, which is to focus on strengths. Now, the benefit of using systems, first of all, is that it allows the business owner more scope. Now, by that, what I mean is that you can have a better view of your business, what's known as a helicopter perspective over your business, rather than being too bogged down with too many details. If you find a system that works, you can use that system, make it work for you, and then be able to see it from a perspective which allows you then to develop that business in other directions while still maintaining that initial system. If the system works, then it will just tick along in the background and you will be able to modify it and check it and tweak it every so often, but fundamentally it will work for you more or less on autopilot. That's the idea of a good system. As I say, it means that you work on the business, not in the business. And all of the very successful internet marketers, in fact, any successful entrepreneur, you think of people like Richard Branson, who has created several multi-million pound, in some cases even probably billion-pound or billion-dollar businesses. There are people who work with him who are part of his system, and he's created systems which work using experts or using his own business knowledge. He's now working on his business, not in it, which means he's able to do the creative things that entrepreneurs like to do, which is to increase business in different areas, to go into new markets. That only becomes possible if you have a system that works in the first market that you're in. And if you then have that system in that market, you can apply it to other markets. Again, allowing you to work on the business, not in it. It's also good when you're working in a system because it helps you to remove the extraneous elements from the focus that you have and from your system. Your system obviously should be tightly focused to success and tightly focused to your particular market. If you manage to do that, then you can start to remove all the elements which we talked about in previous videos, which constitute the things that don't give you very many results. It's that 80-20 principle, or the Pareto principle, in action again. It basically means that you can take away all the things that are only producing 20% of your results and concentrate on the stuff that produces 80% of the results. By doing that, you're going to make a much more successful business, and a system is going to develop which is going to allow you to increase your business far faster than if you were to not do that. So systems are fantastic to help you focus on strengths. It's important that your systems are measurable, that they're tested for efficacy, for how effective they are. And the more effective they are, obviously the better they work, and the more money you make from that particular system, and also the more it can be applied to other particular niches or markets that you're in. So you need to be testing constantly and make sure that there is sort of a testing element as part of the system, so that when you put up, for example, a new ad on Google AdWords, you make sure that you test it. And you test several other different headlines at the same time until you find one that works really well. And then your basic goal at that point is to try and beat it. So you have one which becomes your primary advert, your primary test advert. Once that's proven to be the best one, after you've tested it, then you just try and get it even more effective, and you try and create adverts that are even better than that control version. It's important to constantly improve your system so that it's at its optimum before you move on. And by optimizing your campaigns or optimizing your business, you're able to produce a system again which is much slicker and a much faster way of working than if you were to just bumble through it and hope for the best. Once it's at optimum, it becomes an asset to you because it no longer requires your time or your energy in order to run. And in fact, it also doesn't require your money, because if it's a system that works, then it should be able to fund itself. If it's not funding itself, then it's not a system that works, because obviously it's taking money out of your pocket rather than putting money into your pocket. Robert Kiyosaki talks a lot about this in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He mentions that you should be building assets, not liabilities. And many people buy liabilities thinking that they're assets when in fact they're not. If it takes money out of your pocket instead of putting money into your pocket, then it's a liability. If it puts money in your pocket, it's an asset. So once your system is measured and become optimized, then that means that you have something that is an asset which you can then sell or use to increase your wealth or to create other assets. It's important that your systems, when you do create them, are very straightforward. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're easy or that they're simple, but it does mean that they're broken down. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about reverse engineering. In one of the previous videos, we talked about how it's important to have goals and that you can reverse engineer those goals. If you do reverse engineer your goals, you'll see that there are little steps, the baby steps I mentioned in the video, whereby you complete one very small thing, which then leads on to another small thing, which leads on to another small thing, which compounded over time becomes one very big thing, one very big goal that you've achieved at the end. Now, as I say, they don't necessarily need to be easy, but they do need to be very clear and very straightforward, and they need to be methodical. I put McDonald's there because McDonald's is the best example of a small business in the world, because all it is it's one business replicated over a great many different continents, a very great many different cultures. It's tweaked slightly with each culture, but generally it's exactly the same system with exactly the same machinery, exactly the same systems that those people follow. And by creating a methodical system like that, it means that you can create something which can be done by pretty much anybody. And that's the genius of McDonald's. Anybody can work there because it's very simple systems that work. And no one person is responsible for the whole thing. The manager is responsible for running the system, but no one person is responsible for delivering that meal to the customer. They are responsible perhaps for making sure that the fries are as good as they can be, or making sure the burgers are made, or making sure that the drinks are done, or making sure that the place is clean, or making sure, all of these different elements come together as part of the system. And there could be perhaps one person doing a couple of different elements of the system, but no one person is doing everything in that particular version of a business model. As a result, it's the best small business in the world because it started off as just one simple system, which was then made to be replicated, made to be copied, and we'll look at replication a bit later on. It's also good if you can have a straightforward system because it means that it removes the stress. If you have a system that works, then you can be certain that you're going to succeed because a system that works is just going to tick along for you, and as long as you keep applying each part of the system and as long as each part is optimized, then you have a successful system right there. And all you need to do is keep working that system until you see the sort of returns that you want. Once you've done that and once it's again optimized, then you can create another system. Or you can, even better, apply that system to another market, another niche, and do the same thing over again. For example, Subway, the sandwich chain, they've produced a very simple system that works. Next time you go into Subway or next time you go into a McDonald's, just watch what happens when you order. They say the same thing to you. Or you order your meal. They upsell you, ask you, do you want fries with that? That's an upsell. Then they give you the choice of drink, and then a certain very specific thing happens kind of in the background. That order goes through to a computer in the back of the store. Somebody sees that a certain type of burger needs to be made. They follow a very specific method or a very specific system which happens exactly the same way every single time to produce those burgers or to produce whatever you've ordered. They then go and produce the fries and the drink, and it's all done in exactly the same method every single time. As a result, it's something that can be replicated or can be made to be scalable and removes the stress. And that scalable word, the scalability of your system, is very important, because if it's a system that is simple or straightforward, then it's scalable, because it means it will work for one product or it will work for 1 million. If it works for one product and it works for that product successfully, you can perhaps just tweak it slightly, apply it to a different marketplace and do the same thing in that marketplace. Once that system's working, you do another one and you do the same thing over and over again until you create several assets. For example, again, Richard Branson is a good example of this. He's taken the Virgin brand and the systems that make it work, and he's applied them to lots of different areas. So he applied it to, first of all, the record industry with Virgin stores. He used to have stores in London and around the country of the Virgin record brand. He then created his own record label and eventually expanded into all different sorts of other businesses, like, for example, the airline industry, and into his own businesses where he sort of explores the world, with these sort of very big events that he puts on. It's the same system, or at least a very similar system, that applies to each one when it comes to applying the Virgin brand. And all he's done is he's taken the systems, tweaked them slightly, and applied them to a different market. The good thing about systems that are scalable is they can also be outsourced. If it's something that can be done very simply, that doesn't require a lot of expertise, then you can outsource it to somebody and they can do that particular system all day, every day for you, you can pay them to do that, and you can pay people outside of the country that you live in as well. So for example, if you live in the United States, you might find that the Philippines offers a much better return on investment than somebody you could hire in America. As a result, you're helping the global community, you're helping the global economy at the same time, and you're also getting your system reproduced or followed by somebody, and they can keep following that system until they make the profit that you want them to. Similarly, they are creating a system which pays them, so it's a self-fulfilling system, if you like. Also, the scalable systems use leverage. That's part of the whole outsourcing thing, which again we'll look at later on. But if you can outsource something, it means you're leveraging other people's time or other people's efforts in order to create your system. Now, of course, they're being paid for that, so they're leveraging their time in order to get paid by you, but you're leveraging their skills in order for your system to work and for you to make more money ultimately. If you have 3 or 4 outsourcers all working for you, that becomes a system in itself, because each one is working their own individual system, and all those systems contribute to your one big business. So it's important that they are scalable because you can use leverage. Finally, it's important that they are replicable, that they can be replicated. Perhaps it's replicatable, I'm not sure, but either way, they need to be able to be copied, basically. And if you can copy a system, you can first of all create a system that works. Once the system works, you can move on and create other systems, or, as I say, apply that one system to other marketplaces. And you work one system until it works, and once you've done that, then you can move on. It can also be marketed as a product in itself. So for example, if you create something which makes you $10,000 a month, there are going to be other people out there who want to do that particular thing. They want to create that amount of money for themselves, and they will see that your system works. They'll want to know how it works, and so your system in itself becomes a product. A good example, again, talking about McDonald's as we did earlier on, is their franchise. You can buy a McDonald's franchise and set it up in a store near you, a town near you, or an area near you, and you can run it as your own business. But ultimately, what you're doing is you're creating a part of the McDonald's brand. You're adding to their brand, and by creating that, you're adding to their bottom line, but you're also creating something for yourself. So you're using a system that you know definitely works. And as a result, those people from McDonald's are marketing that system itself. They're not necessarily just marketing the burgers, or they're not necessarily just marketing the fries or the drinks. They're marketing the actual system that makes those drinks possible, and marketing it to other people who want some of that pie, who want some of that market, who will want to have their own system that works and that's been proven to work, and they pay lots of money for those systems. Also, if it's replicable or replicatable, then it allows for a shift in focus and allows you to be more creative. Because if you, for example, outsource it, or you find a system that can just sort of tick along in the background while you work on something else, you can afford to be more creative because you're not worrying about money anymore. You're being more concerned with the running of your business, and again, it means you can work on your business rather than in it. So that's some of the reasons why systems are so vitally important, and why it's important to find a system that you can measure, that's nice and straightforward, that's scalable, and that can be replicated over lots of different industries or lots of different times. And it's important as a result of doing all of those, you can then focus on your strengths. And if you focus on your strengths, then you can build your business much faster, because you're not worrying about knowing everything. You just need to know how the business runs, and all the details can be sorted out either by outsourcers or by you just working on the specific elements that make the system work and taking away all the extraneous detail. So I hope that's been useful for you. That's systems, and we're going to move on to the very next in the 7 habits of highly successful internet marketers.